Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Injury Law Pod. I am your host, Eric Bartlett, 28-year personal injury lawyer, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things personal injury law related. And of interest today, it is Earth Day coming upon us, and today's an interesting combination or merging of two different areas of the law, environmental law and tort law, what we consider personal injury law. So this is kind of environmental tort law, and we're going to have a discussion about a particular case that really became well known after 2000 when a movie was produced featuring the background on this case. And we're going to dive into one of the most iconic legal stories of the last few decades, really. It's the story of Erin Brockovich. And you may have seen the movie with Julia Roberts. And Erin Brockovich is the focus of the movie and her efforts. And she was the legal assistant who took on a corporate giant and helped spark a national conversation about environmental justice. This case wasn't just a courtroom drama, but it exposed serious gaps in environmental protection, and the ripples from that case are still being felt today. So, who was Erin Brockovich? Well, just to start, she was not a lawyer. She'd never gone to law school. She was a single mom in California. She was born in Lawrence, Kansas, so nearby us, but made her way to California. And she was trying to make ends meet. And that's when she landed a job as a file clerk at a small law firm out in California. And what she lacked in legal training, she made up for in determination and gut instinct. And when she came across suspicious medical records related to a town called Hinkley, she didn't ignore them. She followed the trail, and that decision changed everything. So the town of Hinkley, California was a small desert town that most people had never heard of. But under the surface, literally, there was something toxic happening. And residents were getting sick, and we're talking about serious illnesses, cancers, miscarriages, unexplained health issues across generations of people. And the one thing that they all had in common was the water. And Erin started knocking on doors, talking to neighbors, and connecting the dots between their health problems and something far more sinister beneath the ground. So it turns out that the local compressor station that was run by Pacific Gas and Electric, the large utility company in California, more commonly known as PG&E, had been using a chemical to prevent rust in their cooling towers. Now, that chemical was called hexavalent chromium, and they had been using it for many, many years. And that chemical, well, it's a known carcinogen. It's highly toxic. And PG&E had told residents for years that it was a safe chemical, that it was contained, and in even some cases, they claimed it was good for them. But in reality, the chemical was leaking into the groundwater for years, and PG&E knew it the entire time, even though they were representing to those people that had expressed concerns that it was contained, that it was safe, and again, potentially even good for them to have in their water. Testing confirmed the worst fears. Water in Hinkley had dangerously high levels of hexavalent chromium, and families had been drinking it, they had been cooking with it, they had been bathing in it, all while PG&E quietly tried to cover it up. And Erin worked with her attorney, Ed Macery, to dig deeper. And they gathered evidence, they built a case, and they went to bat for hundreds of affected residents. And again, I'd highly recommend you watch the movie. It's a really well-made movie. It dives into the details of exactly what it took for Erin and her law firm to expose what was going on with PG&E, this chemical in the groundwater. So exactly what was found in the Brockovich case? Well, what was found was that PG&E was using that chemical hexavalent chromium at its compressor station to prevent corrosion in its cooling towers. And again, this chemical is a known potent carcinogen, especially dangerous when inhaled or ingested through water. And from 1952 to 1966, PG&E dumped wastewater containing chromium 6 into unlined ponds, which then leached into the groundwater. And the contamination spread over an area of nearly 2 square miles at its peak, affecting hundreds of residents' well water supplies. What was also found was that PG&E knew about the contamination for decades, but deliberately misled the residents and the public health officials. Internal documents that Erin Brockovich and her law firm uncovered revealed that PG&E representatives downplayed the risk. They were telling the residents the chromium was safe or even nutritional. And they even paid for residents' medical checkups, not to help, but to monitor the health outcomes and reduce legal exposure. It was really sinister stuff that PG&E was doing. Based on the residents' reporting of problems, was high cancer rates, especially brain, breast, stomach, and lung cancers. There were frequent miscarriages and birth defects, and there were chronic nosebleeds, skin rashes, gastrointestinal issues, and neurological symptoms. And while the science of linking specific illnesses to chromium 6 ingestion is still debated, the clustering of these illnesses raised serious red flags. Independent testing that was done revealed chromium 6 levels in private wells were far above safe limits. Some wells tested at 580 parts per billion, while California's current public health goal for chromium 6 is 0.02 parts per billion. The test revealed that some of the wells had 580 parts per billion of the chromium 6, while California's current public health goal for chromium 6 is 0.02 parts per billion. And the now withdrawn enforceable limit was 10 parts per billion. So you can see how much these wells exceeded any reasonable standard for the safe level of chromium 6 in the water supply. Soil and vapor contamination was also detected near the compressor site. More than 600 Hinkley residents joined this lawsuit that Erin Brockovich's law firm brought. And Erin Brockovich, working for the law firm, helped organize the case by collecting personal testimonies, medical records, and water samples. But what followed from that investigation was one of the largest direct action lawsuits in U.S. history at the time. And PG&E settled in 1996 for $333 million, which was again an unprecedented outcome at the time. And Erin Brockovich actually received a $2.5 million bonus from her law firm for her role in that case. But even more powerful than the money was the message, which was corporations can be held accountable, people can stand up to power, and they can win. So here's the part that hits hard. This story, it's not ancient history. We've seen the Flint water crisis, concerns over forever chemicals, PFAs, in our water supply, and pipeline battles all over the country. The Brockovich case highlighted how broken our regulatory systems can be, how environmental protections can fail real people. Today, the EPA is still catching up. Laws haven't fully addressed newer threats, and grassroots action, like what Erin did, is still one of the most powerful tools that we have. Erin Brockovich showed us that change can start with one person asking the right question and refusing to back down. And again, this was no simple task. It took years to put this case together, to get this evidence and force PG&E into a position that essentially they admitted that they were wrong, that they had been covering up. And again, legally, right, they didn't admit anything, but they paid a whole lot of money to a lot of different people. And so what we can take away from Erin's story is that courage matters. You know, we sometimes, I mean, in my world, we face these insurance companies, and I've said it many, many times before. They are very powerful. They have a lot of money, and the fight is real. And so it does take courage sometimes, because it can look like something that's unwinnable. But when you put the time, the effort, and the resources behind the cause, the little guy can win. And, again, Erin's story shows that paying attention, asking questions, not taking whatever the general answer is, and fighting for your community, all of that matters. And so, again, as we have Earth Day and the week surrounding it, we're thinking about all the environmental threats that we face. Again, if you search around, if you watch the news, whatever that looks like, you will quickly realize that, for example, these microplastics, these forever chemicals, they are finding them present in us, in our drinking water, in our food sources, uh, more and more. And I just saw recently a news story where a study showed that um, people that they looked at their brains of deceased people, and they were finding like a spoonful size of microplastics in these deceased people's brains. And right now, it's not clear of how exactly this is affecting us. There's certainly suspicions that the buildup of things like that in our bodies are leading to neurodegenerative disorders and cancers and other serious issues with the health of us. And so it's a really important moment to, take some time, become aware, and, get involved in environmental justice, support local advocacy groups, push for stronger regulations, and again, never underestimate the power of your voice, because we do face a lot of potential threats in our food supply, in our water supply, and it's affecting all of us. It's affecting our children, and it's not going away anytime soon. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and get outside and enjoy nature.